Hello, all my bottoms up babes. This is your soul master, Kerie, taking the messiness in life, mixing it up, finding the message, and serving it to you straight. Because healing isn't linear, it's layered, and sometimes the breakdown is just the beginning of your breakthrough. Here, we honor the ache, speak the life into silence, and give the broken pieces a place to belong. This is the space where truth meets tenderness, where your story is sacred and your scars are seen. So breathe deep, open up, listen up, and let the healing begin. Hello, all my bottoms up babes. I am your host, Kerie Hamilton, here to take the messiness in life, mix it up, find the message, and serve it to you straight. Here we talk about real life struggles, uncover lessons, healing, and discuss transformations. Today's guest is a divorced father of 3 amazing boys. He went through a divorce from a 20-year marriage, which caused much emotional, spiritual, and financial collapse. He is a survivor of emotional abuse, as well as something that touches millions of lives: alcoholism. Alcoholism is often referred to as the silent storm because it quietly unravels lives, families, and futures that are left unspoken. However, Renick has recovered and making a major comeback by implementing something called the Goddard mythology and his podcast called The In-Between Man. Please join me in welcoming all the way from North Carolina, Mr. Renick Morris.
Dude,
hey, Renick.
so epic. Holy cow. Like, I literally have never had an introduction like that before. I'm like, I don't even know what to say. Kerie, you're amazing.
You're amazing. That's why I just love you. And that's why I wanted you to come on here today to talk to everybody, because you truly have made such a wonderful comeback and you have helped so many, including myself. So, of course, I have to have the amazing Renick Morris on here.
I'm super appreciative, and you know that. So thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Oh, you're so sweet. I wanted to touch base with you about the alcoholism. I know that you and I had talked outside of this episode and us recording here today, and there was something that you had mentioned to me, and it truly touched my heart, and I'll explain why after I have you explain. But something that you said was you noticed that when it was getting really bad and the things that, you started basically using alcohol as a coping mechanism for things that you were going through in your life. And I want you to share with everyone what made you finally realize, telling them about the situation that occurred when your dad was in the car with you.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm happy to. It's one of those memories, Kerie, that like, it's so vivid. Like, I can remember the color of the seats in the car, right? Like, I can remember, the trim on the car. I can remember what car we were in. I can see the stoplight. I can see, going under this bridge that the the Metro North Railroad would drive over, right? I remember seeing the building that was connected to it. It was so vivid, but at the same time, it was also like really slow. You know what I mean? Like, it just happened, and people describe things happening to them so seriously, like in a slow motion type of dynamic. But prior to this point, I was living in Miami, and my life was completely unmanageable. I mean, like, alcohol had its way with me, psychologically and mentally. I was deep in a ditch, and I would never wish that on anyone. Everybody talks about who's been in a ditch, how bad it is. But it was at this stoplight that my dad said to me, and we had a friend who was in AA. He said to me while he was smoking a cigar, he had a huge cigar in his mouth. And as he was exhaling the smoke out the window, he said, "Hey, Ren, I've been going to AA meetings with Tony. And I got to tell you, it's just been absolutely incredible. I feel like I'm on a cloud 9. And you know what? I want you to know that I love you very much." Right. And so here I am at this stoplight. My dad is finally saying to me for the first time in my entire life, when I wish that he would say it to me every time I saw him, that he actually loved me. And I was like, holy shit. And I got really emotional and I started crying, but not like bawling, like like the tears were welling up, right? And so I looked at my dad while he's smoking the cigar, and he looked at me, and he had a tear running down his face. And I knew from that day forward that I was going to, if my dad, who at the time who I think was, 58 years old,
Mm.
could go to a AA meeting and be on a cloud nine, that I could too, right? And then that day, we drove back home, and I flew on a plane and went back to Miami, and I started my first AA meeting in the Miami Heart Institute on Miami Beach, and I've been sober ever since.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
It's
And the
crazy.
reason why I wanted to share that with you is because, as you know, for myself personally, and even in the life coaching field, that is the one thing that anyone that is suffering from any sort of addiction, whether it's alcohol, drugs, even prostitution,
Right.
sexual type
Sure.
things, the one thing that they say that they wish someone had given them or said to them or done, or even I've had people say, I just wanted someone's loving hands to just
Right.
wrap me and just
Right.
say,
It's fun to be hugged.
yes, like you are so loved, or you are amazing, or just you're worth it, something in that nature. And it was like just someone to feel some sort of
Totally.
worthiness for me or validation of it was like a light switch to say, oh my God, like that was what I needed to like almost kickstart me and let me know my true worth and value. And that's what I try to tell people all the time is we get so lost and caught up in the mental aspect of people that degrade us, demean us, do evil things to us. And
Mm-hmm.
once you realize that the reason they do those things is actually something inside of themselves, it's
Right.
not actually you personally that
Right.
you are a bad person or you're whatever fill in the blank that they say or
Right.
do. Once you realize like, oh my God, I devalued myself and I lost my own worth and value, to
Right.
have someone say that to you and realize that it was true meaningful words, it's like that changes your whole world around. And that's why I wanted you to share that, because it really is that spur of the moment that you're like, whoa, you know, I, it was an eye opener for myself as well as you,
No, it was a total eye opener. And there comes a time, I think, in everybody's journey wherein you've either done one or two things. You've either had enough of trying to manage the unmanageable, which my life
Mhm.
was. I mean, not only physically but mentally. Um, and either you stay down that path and you continue to be miserable, you continue to keep hurting people, probably not even knowing why, because you're so selfish and you're so self-centered. At least I was. That like you are just going to be like a plow, just plowing through everybody's life, and
Yeah.
everybody else is the problem. And then when you realize, or at least when I realized that I was the problem and that I was the one that needed real help, then I was willing to raise my hand and say, I can't do this. I need help. Will someone please help me? And when I walked into my first 12-step meeting, my first AA meeting, I raised my hand and people came running, and from that day forward, I've been working on it ever since. And through the grace of God, like I haven't had to pick up a drink, don't want to pick up a drink. And listen, I've had hundreds of different excuses to pick one up, but I know enough to know that if I consume any mind altering substance,
Yeah.
marijuana, nitrous, whatever you want it to be, like it's going to awake this dragon inside of me where
Hmm.
I become an absolute selfish, self-centered asshole, and I do not care about anyone's feelings. How much I just become everything that I don't want to be.
And that's funny, that you say that as well, because it's so, and when I say funny, I mean, it's so crazy that people's the trauma that people go through, like mine is abuse, yours was alcoholism, like they're two totally different spectrums of trauma, but they really do mirror the same,
Right.
because here you go to the abuse, and the abuse becomes an addiction, because just like the highs and the lows of drugs, and just like the highs and the lows of alcohol, you are in the high or the low of the abuse. So it's the same. We are all addicts. It's just of different things. And so that, with you saying about loving yourself, that's exactly when people ask me, well, what did you do that finally made you leave? Like, what happened? Did they literally beat you so bad to the point where you were like, okay, I have to go because I'm going to die if I, and I'm like, no, what made me leave is I finally loved myself more.
Totally.
And that's exactly it. When you finally love yourself more than the drug, when you finally love yourself more than the alcohol, when you finally love yourself more than the abuser, when you finally see that you actually are the ticket, you're the golden ticket to the issue. Like, the alcohol doesn't have. Yes, well, but that's just it. The abuser doesn't have anyone to abuse if I don't allow myself to be the abused.
100%.
The alcohol doesn't drink itself if you aren't the one drinking it.
Correct.
And once you realize that, like, I'm bowing down to this devil that I know so well, and I'm not surrendering to the God that loves me so much, like, which is loving my own self. Once you wake up to that, you're like, oh my God.
You can't go back to sleep.
No.
Like, once you wake up to the reality that you can't do that anymore, it's like you can't, change a leopard's, spots. Like, when you recognize and you realize that you will no longer accept being treated that way, you cannot go back to what it once was. And if you do, you're just going to be in much more pain and much more discomfort, because now you know why. So it's even worse, right? So you're right. I mean, I too, with my divorce, someone said something as simple as, Renick, it doesn't sound like you have a partner. That I was like, I don't. I don't have someone that's doing what I feel like I've been doing and needed to do in a marriage as part of being a man on my side of the team. You know what I mean? Like, I'm playing this whole game by myself and getting manipulated and contorted in ways and being okay with it. And I finally realized that I had to do it for me. And before, I was doing it for my kids, because I come from a divorced family. I don't want my kids to go through the divorce. So that added years to, the abuse and whatnot, because I refused to accept that it couldn't not work, right? Like, I married this person, it's going to work. And, it goes back to what we've talked about on a couple different occasions, which is you just can't change people, no matter how hard you try.
No. And that's, you can only lay yourself down to be the victim for so long until you finally realize things don't change unless I'm the one that changes them. If you are, you can't. What I tell people is, it really is true when they say love is a language, because I could sit here and I can speak Chinese to you right now, and you don't speak Chinese. So no matter if I say it slow, I say it fast, or I say it, in each word every 2 seconds, you're still going to look at me and go, I don't know what you're saying, because I don't speak Asian. I'm not an Asian person. I'm not Chinese. I don't speak that. So it's the same thing. You can sit there and literally say, honey, I don't like you doing this, this, this. Honey, I don't like you doing that, that, that. Honey, I don't like you, blah, blah, blah. And you could keep saying it, but if that person's not registering and speaking your love language, it's going in one ear and out the other. Yes, you're just talking to a wall. And and here's the thing is, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. They're probably a great person too for someone of their nature or someone of their kind. It's just they're not speaking your language, so you can't sit there and keep getting upset that they're not understanding you when they don't speak the language that you speak. Like I said, if I don't understand Chinese, I'm not going to understand whether you say it slow, fast, at nighttime, in the daytime, under a table, in the shower. It doesn't matter, right? Exactly. Like, and until that reality hits you, that you're like, wow. There's like a saying that people say that you're either with me or you're against me. And I would always hear that, and I'd be like, well, that's really a strong word, or, a strong phrase. And actually, as you go on with life and you kind of make that mental transition, knowing that it begins with you and it ends with you type of thing, it is true. People are either for you or they're just not for you. They're just against you. They're in a different world, a different realm, a different language, and you can't sit there and keep pointing out their flaws and their issues and and degrading them Because and sure, maybe they are maybe they are a bad person. Let's just say we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they are a bad person, and you know they're just not good for you, but they're good for someone else. And
Right.
so you know, and maybe that person, and obviously that person isn't you. So it's
Right.
like,
Thank God.
yes, right, exactly. So it's like, just let them go and do what they need to do in life, and let them find their person, and you go find yours. You know,
Right.
you're beating a dead horse, and all you're doing is wasting time. And time is the one thing you can't buy, you can't sell, you can't make up, you can't steal, you can't nothing. Like,
Right.
when is enough and too much too much? And that's just it. You have to fight. You have to come to the realization that you have to love yourself more.
Yeah.
And
And we all come to that decision when we're ready.
yep,
Right.
yep.
Like, what may take me, a month to get ready for could take someone, 2 years. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can't tell someone when they're ready. They have to be ready when they're ready. And you can choose whether or not you want to be around that person or you don't want to be around that person. I prefer not to be around people who aren't ready and are selfish and self-centered and only think about themselves and are constantly
Mm-hmm.
questioning everything about anything to prove a point that, I'm not in the debate. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not
Yep.
having the debate with people. I just want to hear what's happening. So I totally get it.
Well,
100%
and
get
it
it.
works that way too with addicts. Like, whatever, insert whatever. I mean, you could be addicted to biting your nails. That's still an
Right.
addiction. I mean,
Sure.
people, that's one thing I will say is, like, a lot of people, when they hear the word addict, they automatically assume like some big drug addict, like,
Right.
and they automatically fault people. You can be an addict of anything. Have you ever seen that, like, weird, crazy addiction? People like will like eat their couch or something. There's like a
Yeah. Or
TV
like eat
show,
like drywall.
dry, like that stuff. Exactly. It's like there's people out there that do that stuff. But
Yeah.
where I'm getting at with it is that they aren't, an addict isn't going to stop doing whatever it is that they're doing until they're physically ready. That's why you
Right.
see so many people relapse, and so you have these parents that keep throwing their kids in these drug rehabs,
Oh
and then
my
they're
God.
mad when they
Yeah.
relapse because they're not ready. They didn't come to the conclusion of loving themselves more to give up that vice that they're coping, whatever it is deep down inside, that they need to pull that root out of. There's
Right.
something in there, that is bothering them. And for anyone that's out there listening, the one thing for me that it took me a bit to understand is, here I went in to see a therapist because I knew, to be honest, I was dying. So I came to the
Right.
point where I said, I have to see a therapist because I can't eat. I've been hospitalized for
Right.
malnutrition, dehydration. Like, my organs were literally fighting each other.
Right.
And my doctor was at the point saying, if you lose any more weight, we are going to put a feeding tube in you because
Right.
you are that sick. Like, you're dying.
Right.
And so it was like, okay, well then obviously I need help, And so I finally got to the point, like I said, I was on death's door, and I went and saw a therapist. And I'll never forget, because the first like 3 or 4 sessions, she kept asking me about my childhood. And I'm like,
Yeah. What are we
finally,
talking
like, the
about my
fourth
childhood for?
session.
I'm sick.
Yes, like the fourth session, I'm like, listen, lady, I'm here for this psychopath that won't leave me alone, like this abuser. Like, I'm
Right.
not here for my childhood, okay?
Right.
And I'll never forget, she, just like you said, with like your dad looking at you, or even the person saying about how, you don't have a partner kind of thing. That was like
Right.
how this lady was. She looked right at me in my face and she said, honey, that is the reason that you are entertaining this abuser, is because something happened to you in your childhood that made you feel that you didn't deserve someone that treats you with respect and love and honesty and
And
growth and so
kindness.
forth.
Right.
Kindness. Yes.
You're
And I
not
was
worthy
like,
of that.
yes. And I was like, oh my God. So for any listeners that are out there and they're wondering, why do they keep going in these toxic relationships, and why do they keep entertaining these people, and you're always looking on the outside, like, what is on my face that someone, some
Right.
crazy
Right.
lady has
Do I
to
have a
say, come to
branch
me?
coming out of my head that says
Yeah.
abuse me?
Yes. Like, is there a ticket on my back that says, hey, if you're an asshole, come date me?
Right. Right. Right.
But it's not. It comes from you. It's something in your past, whether it was abandonment from a father, mother figure, or whatever.
Alcoholism.
Abuse, alcoholism, parents that tore you down and told you weren't worth anything,
Right.
Mental abuse. Like, again, going back to the whole addiction thing, abuse also, like, we said how addiction isn't just drugs. That's the same thing for abuse. Abuse is not just physical abuse, touching people. It's, mentally abused,
Emotional.
emotionally abused. Like,
I was more emotionally abused than I was physically. Right.
see,
Like someone, I remember someone's using the term gaslighting. I was like, it was like a NASCAR term. Like I didn't understand what it was. It didn't make any sense to me. I didn't understand what that meant until, you know, I got a pamphlet from, you know, a domestic violence thing that happened that my wife, you know, hit me. And I was reading this thing and it defined what gaslighting was. I was like, holy cow, I've been going through this for a long, like, this isn't just overnight. Like, this has been
Yes.
happening for a long period of time. And you're like, I mean, you just have like this awakening where you're like, I can't, like, how did I get there? And it's not about how I got there and how it happened.
Well, and the sad thing is that I have had this experience as well with the gaslighting is some people don't even know that they're doing it
Right.
because they're so, we're
Used
all
to it.
creatures of habit. And so if they haven't healed their past,
Correct.
it's part of their nature. So some people aren't even doing it necessarily to hurt you or that because it's you. Some people are just doing it because that's what they're accustomed to. So when you say that, they're like, wait, what? Because
Right.
they're the same way, just as much as you don't understand
Right.
it, they don't even know that they're doing it.
Totally.
People that are like, how come I keep getting these toxic relationships? How come I keep getting, these people that abuse me or
Right.
use me or whatever?
Right.
And it's because you haven't taken that root out of whatever it
Right.
is that makes you keep entertaining those people.
Right.
Like for me, being abused as a child, I felt worthless. I felt like
Right.
I was below, like I needed to entertain that sort of character because I was taught what love is not and not what love is.
Right.
So that
Right.
enlightenment was something that I always knew love as.
Right.
So someone that was healthy was boring to me because I didn't have that
Drama.
that drama, that craziness, that chaos. I knew
Right.
love is a sacrifice. So if I didn't fight for it,
Right.
then I didn't know that it was love. I didn't
Right.
feel love. The things that I did for love in the past, like they make me sick. I want to throw up.
Right. You want to barf all over yourself. And it makes
Yes.
perfect sense. I mean, like, and that's why I say you can't go back to that mindset because, and I think this is part of the challenge that men are facing is that like it's become a lot more socially acceptable for them to use the words like vulnerability and emotional. And, you know, I think a lot of society is saying, why aren't you being more emotional? Why aren't you being more vulnerable? Like you have every opportunity to do that. Well, the fact of the matter is, for decades, men have been told not to do that. And everything that we do is centered around not doing that. So you may think that it's okay to talk about it now because it's you know, society is accepting it in that way, but for a guy it's still taboo and nothing that they ever want to admit or talk about. So they typically do what you're describing, which is get into this spot where I know this is bad, but I don't want to do anything about it because that means that I'm not a good man or there's something wrong with me. And God knows I'm not going to ask for help because if I can't figure it out on my own, then it can't be figured out. And those two things keep men in this perpetual back and forth of asking for help, no, and knowing that they shouldn't be in something. So what do? They consume more alcohol, they bang more heroin, they sleep with more prostitutes, they borrow more money than they can afford, right? Like all these different things happen, these short-term gains that don't measure up to anything but just more pain and more agony down the road, and I hear exactly what you're saying, and unfortunately, we are ready when we're ready.
Well, and I think with today's society too, now they have changed all of us into this convenience world. We have our convenient baking, our convenient food shopping, our convenient car rides, our convenient, just everything we do is convenient. And the one thing that you cannot do conveniently in this life is love. Love is a commitment. It has to be a commitment. Now, yes, you can find things that are under the umbrella of love. Like, for instance, you can go get a quick fix of someone to sleep with you, and that's a convenient, person. Or you might have that convenient person that you always bring on to your company events because they just are a good companion to fit in with whoever that you're, whatever, the company is that you're entertaining. Or maybe you even have that one that you buys you everything, so you just conveniently use them when they, whatever it is, when you need something. But that's not love, and it will always fall short of that companionship and that connection and that peace that you're looking for. So if you don't if you keep filling the void with
Right.
conveniency, you will always have a void. And
Correct.
so if you're looking for real love and you want that commitment, you have to commit. You have to be in that commitment field. And I feel like the reason why a lot of the relationships are falling short these days are for that exact reason. Nobody is having that conversation piece anymore up front and saying, hey, are you looking for a commitment, or are you just looking for something convenient? Like, are you fine by yourself and you just need
Right.
a random
Right.
lover?
Right.
Like, and if those conversations aren't being had, then one's looking for a commitment, one's looking for convenience, and then it ends up being a total catastrophe. And then the next thing you know, they're putting Renick's name on the do not date sites on
Right.
those
Right. Right.
Facebook sites saying
Right.
you're a bad person.
Right. It's already there. You don't have to
But,
worry about putting it on there.
but,
No, but
you
I
know
think
what I mean?
what you're saying is, you know, dating today and relationships today is really a transactional type of dynamic where, you know, one sex will say, I deserve all of this, and it's part of your job to provide it to me, and that's what you need to give me. And the other side is saying, I don't know if that's necessarily true, or I need something a little bit more than just providing you with external gifts, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I can bring more to the table than just that. Do you want more than that? And because it's become transactional, there's nothing unconditional about it, right? Like
Exactly.
there's nothing unconditional about it. It's all conditioned. And you and I both know that narcissists are conditioned based, and people can be very condition based because they want what they want and they seek what they seek, and they will get what they think that they need to find out that it's nothing of what they ever hoped. Their expectations are never met. And
well, again, you will always fall flat. That's what I'm
right,
saying. Because you're taking temporary solutions
right,
to a permanent problem
right,
versus a permanent
correct,
solution and making the problem just temporary. But where this ties hand in hand with dating, in that is, again, going back to finding that core issue within yourself.
right,
Because, for instance, I had a healthy marriage, but I didn't see it as healthy. To me, I felt unloved. So I was
right,
buying shoes, buying purses, going on
right,
trips, another car, a bigger house. I was taking temporary things and filling that
right.
dopamine fix, because I
Yep.
didn't feel that with my ex-husband, because he was healthy and I knew love is unhealthy.
Right.
So I needed some kind of fix all the time to
Right.
make me feel loved. And that's just it. If you don't fix that internal root issue, you will constantly seek outside. Love is internal.
Right.
External that's not love. Those are desires. And
Correct.
everyone has desires. We're all desiring to be a better person, to have a better this, to be a better that. Those are all desires. But if you don't fix the core issue, you're just going to keep entertaining the bits of desires and you're never going to be fulfilled. And the
Ever.
only way of doing it is starting with yourself. You have to literally love yourself to where you are content. You're not falling into that codependency of needing something or someone, and fixing that. And then being alone, seeing what fills you, go on trips by yourself, eat dinners on your own, take yourself out to date,
Right.
go on, runs or whatever by yourself,
Walks.
go running, go walk, go in nature, go find your physical self, because you'll be amazed. Go do the random shit. Like, for instance, my grandma was like a huge knitter and like sewer, and I always
Right.
be like, yeah, that's something old ladies do, But then as I like am by myself, I'm like, I'm gonna go take this sewing class. Now. Like, who do I have to?
Right.
Maybe I might love it, But I would have
Love
never
corsaging.
done that. Right. I would have never done that though, being in relationships and stuff, because
Right.
it would be something, no man is like, yeah, sign me up for a sewing class. Yeah, let's
Right.
do this,
Let's do some quilting tonight.
Right. Well, and that leads us into your Goddard methodology.
Yeah, the Goddard methodology? Yeah.
So yeah, tell us about that. Like, what is it? What do you feel that's like beneficial for listeners that are listening, and why you basically did it?
Yeah, so I put this together really for myself, because I can identify with it, and also for men, because what I realized during my divorce, right, that, you know, my experience with being a divorce was really isolation, right? I was in recovery, so I had people that I could lean on, but I isolated. You know, I refused to even look at dynamics that at the time I might have, right? So I think a lot of men today are in relationships and dynamics that they may not even realize are unhealthy, and convince themselves to say, well, that's part of the deal. Why, when I got married, like to your point about, you know, like I have to work hard, I have to sacrifice, I have to do more work, I have to provide more finances, like all these types of things. And so this methodology, the Goddard methodology, is really basically simple, and it's the Goddard methodology was developed to support men who have endured common or significant mental health challenges, or men who are facing intense personal or professional pressure that makes it difficult for them to manage their daily responsibilities. And so it's really a very simple approach that can help someone, a man in particular, identify with help what their part may be in the process, right? Like this is all about accountability and saying to yourself, like, where is my part in this, as opposed to pointing the finger, right? Because if I'm constantly pointing the finger, you know, I have what, three more pointing back at me. Like if I'm always calling everybody else out, then I'm not really always accepting what's going on with me. And most men will do that and blame everybody else, but or know that they're hurting and don't know why. And it puts them in a spin that is, you know, can be very tragic. And then at the same time too, you know, men don't ask for help. And this is the kind of thing that, you know, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say, I don't know. Like, it's okay to say, this hurts really bad. Like, I didn't know that I could do that. I knew it the day my father told me that he loved me, because I never thought that he would. And so over the years, I've recognized that when you can accept that I have a part in it, and I know that I have a part in it, and I take accountability for it, then I can see what I'm accountable for, and whether or not my anger is based on you or is it based on me, right? And so it builds a foundation that you can use long after any coaching that you could do, you know, down the road. It's like one of those things that once you learn how to do it, you can never not learn it. You know what I mean?
And I think, like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think too with men, they are, you know, they were always raised to, you know, say you're in a baseball game and you get hurt, like, don't, just leave it alone, don't cry, don't, you know, stuff it down, stuff your feelings down. And so now, you know, and as men had grown, they had found their worthiness for what they could produce or what they could provide.
Correct.
And unfortunately, there's not so good women out there, and they knew that. So then they used and abused that, because they knew that the guy wants to give, because in his mind, that's stating his worth and his value. And the girl's going, take, you know, and doesn't give a damn about the guy. And so,
and then the guy wakes up one day and he's like, hey, I did everything I was supposed to do, and why am I living in a tent?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, how did I get here? And you know, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I thought was going to happen. And a lot of what the Goddard methodology is, it's talking about acknowledging that there are aspects of our traditional male value system that doesn't allow us to be emotional, right? Like that, that it lacks emotional and or spiritual substance. And then questioning, does that apply to me? Or can I relate and understand that some of those societal, cultural, personal things that I've put on myself through my parents and my father teaching me, are those realistic expectations, right? Am I really supposed to be like Clint Eastwood and not express any emotion and just shoot you in the face when I'm upset? Like, no, like, you're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be frustrated. You're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to be hurt. And like, for men to hear that, like, most men don't. I mean, most men,
because they feel that that, you know,
most men would rather kill themselves than to admit that failure. And that is what I'm hoping that I can day by day help men understand that they don't need to feel that way if they don't want to, right? Like this is, but this isn't, this is something that the individual has to be willing to do, right? Like if the individual isn't willing to see that they have a part in any of the process, then none of what I can offer has any value because you've already shut down
Right.
the
You
ability.
already have.
You're saying that it's an unsolvable problem, and I've learned that when people are in enough pain, when men are in enough pain, they either finally admit that they need help and it's substantial, or it doesn't have to be that substantial, or they do the worst thing that you can do, which is, drive yourself off a cliff. And we have too much of that now in today's society than we ever have had. And, if I could do anything to help change that, I'm gonna.
Well, and that's just, I know I shared this with you before too, is, when I got to my end point, when I literally was in the dark,
Right.
people say, oh, suicide is selfish, or suicide is,
Right.
didn't you appreciate this or that, or, whatever. And yes, my kids were what kept me here. My
Right.
job was what kept me here. My
Right.
work was what kept me here. I did appreciate all of that. And that is exactly why I'm still standing every single day. But when the darkness overcomes all that, and when it literally consumes you, you now look at yourself as more of an inconvenience, because you're like, I don't want my kids. I want them to remember me as the loving mom I always was to them, not
Right.
this miserable, horrible, crying every day psychopath.
Right.
Like, because I'm so stressed out
Right.
over everything that I'm going through. Like,
Right.
so now you're like, I just want to take myself out of the equation because I
Right.
don't want them to feel the misery that I'm feeling. So it's not even that they were the reason that kept you moving and kept you going.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was in my darkest times that I literally was exactly that. I craved death, because death to me
It's
was the
final.
peace. It was the
Right.
peace that I
Right.
was craving.
100%.
And that is where a lot of these men, if they don't speak up and you just let it eat away at you, poison is literally, it's like taking a seed, putting it in your body,
Yep.
neutralizing it, feeding it, and it just grows, and eventually it's too big for its environment, which is inside of your body, and it just explodes.
Yeah.
And
Like I even said to you before, like I like to use the analogy that men carry around backpacks, right? Like, and if there's ever a time when something happens that's unmanageable or it hurts, instead of looking at it, they just put it in their backpack. And so when they're younger, they're just, tossing stuff in the backpack. And then by the time they're 35, like this thing weighs a lot, but like I can still put more stuff in. And it wasn't until that I was at a place where the backpack weighed so much that my knees and my legs couldn't carry it anymore, and I just fell to the ground. And if I didn't look at what was in that backpack, I would never be able to walk again, right? And that's really what happens to men. We will endure a heavy load to avoid admitting that we need help, and or that we have any emotional trauma or problems or anything like that. And it's a terrible place to be. But on this topic of suicide, it's a terrible conversation. But like I was ready to do it, but the one thing that stopped me from doing it was, like, I can't imagine my kids coming into my bedroom and seeing my brain splattered all over the back of the floor and have to actually clean that up. Like, I could not be okay with having them see that or know that I did that. And so it compelled me to say, I'll take the other way. And the other way was, and I've shared this analogy with you before, that I was in so much emotional pain, I felt like a burn victim. Like you've burned your finger, you burn your leg, right? You burn your arm, it hurts. Even if nothing else on your body is burnt. But if your entire body is burnt, like you can't move, you can't get comfortable. Something itches. You're constantly in discomfort. And I felt like that for a really, really, really long time. And to be honest with you, I didn't know when it was going to end. I just had people tell me that had gone through it that it will, and that you just got to keep going, you know. And I didn't want to keep going because it hurt so much. But I listened to what people told me to do, and I did it, and I eventually punched through the other side. But to your point about convenience, right? Like we live in a world where we have Chat GPT. We live in a world where we have Google. We live in a world where we have Google Maps. We live in a world with GPS. We live in a world where we can use our credit cards to get a soda or a good humor ice cream bar, right? Like everything is convenient. When it comes to dynamics like this, there is nothing convenient about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't make that pain go away unless you're willing to compromise yourself, right? Like it's one of those things that, and I think I shared this with you before, is that like Carl Jung talks about, a famous psychiatrist talks about, there's a necessary suffering that happens to every human being. It has to happen. And the suffering isn't like you did this wrong, you need to go be punished in your room and suffer what you did wrong. The suffering is enduring the fact that these things take a long time to go through, and you may not know how long it will take, but you know that it will end because you've seen other people around you that it has ended, and you just believe that it will get better. And that takes a long time to work through, and it's uncomfortable. And most people refuse to do it because it is hard, but it's not impossible. I mean, there's plenty of people that have done it. You've done it. I've done it, right? Like we're perfect examples of what long-term solutions look like. And they are the unknown. They are, I need to have some faith in something other than myself, or not. But I trust in what other people are telling me. I'm around people that love me unconditionally. And I believe that I can get better because I've seen other people do it. And it takes, that's a lot for men to wrap their mind around when they've just been told to suck it up. And they've been sucking it up since the day their dad told them, stop crying on the wrestling mat because you're acting like a pussy. And my kids aren't pussies, right? Like, so, you know, it's more than just one or two things. It's a deep founded, rooted scenario that over time, you know, you can chip away at and see results.
I always said it's like a word search. Like it's like a mystery word search.
Totally.
It's a mystery word search with you and God. It's like, okay, you have all these letters, right? So, or in your case, a backpack filled with chaos, okay? And it's like, you feel something, oh, I found that word, I got that word search, and you're like proud of it, but then you're like, it's still heavy. So now you got to go back and you got to find, and it's like the mystery word search where like, you know, and people that are out there that are like in that, like, that mode, it really is, it's a big mental fuck is what it is. When you realize that life truly is all mental, it like changes you, because here you are in this mentality of like, another thing, how much more can I take? And now I got my car towed, now I can't pay
now my
this
flat tire,
how am I gonna it's like, oh, now I can't afford groceries. And you're sitting here and in your mind you're counting all the burdens, right? You're counting and I tell people, don't count the burdens, because the burdens will always fucking be there. Life is not easy. It's a test. And every day you come up on top, I'm going to tell you right now, because if it isn't something that you did, it's a fucking hater in the sky that's going to push you back under, because that's what people do. People are assholes, and the only person that's going to save you is yourself. So you can come up from the water a million times, but there's going to be someone or something that pushes you back under because they want what you have, or there's just going to be something else that fell off the ship and now is on your back and you got to sail it away. And 100%. So if you count the burdens, you will drown your own self, because what you're doing is you're counting how many bricks are until you go.
You're just adding another 5 pounds to your utility belt that's going to sink you.
So you got to start counting the blessings, and you got to start seeing that, okay, this happened, but it could have been this, or this happened, but the other day I did that. And when you start counting the blessings, blessings, all you're doing is putting positive into your brain. And so that's all you have to disperse. So it's all a mental game. And once you realize that, you're like, oh my God, it's pretty fucked up. Number one, it's totally messed up when you realize that life truly is a mental. And like even the things that you were told and the things you went through, you're like, oh my God, that's because Susie said that, or Jimmy told me that, or Beth told, like when you start realizing all that and you're like, wait, that was my reaction was because of the action that Susie did to me or whatever. And so once you start realizing that life will always have burdens, but you got to get through and you got to count the blessings instead to keep you sailing. Once you start realizing that and turning your mental aspect into the positive of it, it's like a game changer. Like then it's like a smooth sailing, because what it is eventually those people that were flying ahead and they wanted to push you under every time they saw you come back up, they start to realize, oh, it doesn't bother you anymore. Oh, well, now I'm not going to get my jollies off of pushing you back under the water because you don't flap around and try to breathe again. Like now you're standing there going, okay, I'm going to sit underwater, motherfucker. And then eventually you're going to get bored and I'm going to come back up. So when you start doing that and you start realizing and you stop feeding into the burdens, because that's how they know that it gets you off, all of a sudden it's like your ship is almost to the destination. It's like, holy cow, all I needed to do was change my mental aspect of seeing the things. And now it's like, it's a whole different world. It's all, that's why people that say, I don't care about love, I don't care about this, all I care about is my peace. And that's what they mean when they start realizing and changing their mindset to see the peace of the bullshit. That's where they're like, oh my God, like you can find peace in anything, even though it sucks. Yeah, does it suck? You got a flat tire? Yes, it does. But hurry up, change your mindset. You didn't get in a car accident. Change it to something positive, and then you can keep sailing, because there's always going to be something or someone that comes around and tries to rain on your parade. That's life. That's what people do. And the more you feed into it, the more it comes.
Well, I think human beings, and I'll speak for myself, like before I admitted that, I struggled with alcohol, I thought that I really believed, like I would have gone to my deathbed, that I was terminally unique, right? Like anytime that you saw me, like I envisioned that you would say, God, that guy's really freaking got it together. You know what I mean? Like that would be the perception that I would have, that like I am so unique and so special that you should honor every step that I take and trying to be like me, right? And so when we get into a spot like what you're talking about, and I think this happens a lot with men, when we think that we can figure out a solution on our own and then can't, and then we're not ready or willing to ask for help, we think that because I'm so unique and because I'm so special and so different, and because I can't figure it out, and because I'm not willing to ask for help, that is like a badge of honor. It's not, right? Like I remember doing a lot of things that I swore I'd never tell anyone. I mean, like swore I would never tell anyone. And when I was able to share them with somebody, thinking and believing that I would be judged and persecuted and looked down upon, and have that person say to me, yeah, there's a reason there's a name for that. Like a lot of other people do that too, and I thought that for a long time that no one else did what I did, and quite the opposite. A lot of people are weird and do a lot of weird things like I did, when I didn't know, or when I believed that I was more unique than I am. And I think one of the greatest level setting things for me is to just remember that I'm just another kind of like dude out there. I'm not a superstar. I'm not an actor. I'm not a superhero. I'm not any of that stuff. I'm an average Joe who goes through life days, ups and downs, right? But what happens now is, in the beginning, my ups and downs were like high, high, up and down, up and down. Well, and as I get older, learning how to, become more accountable for my stuff, like my ups and downs are a lot more manageable. You know what I mean? I can see what my part is. I can understand my part and take accountability for it, where before it was everybody else's fault. And my struggles aren't unique, and that there's a lot. Listen, like I said to you last night, it could always be worse, right? It could always be so much worse than it actually is. And there's so many more people that have it worse than I have it right now, that like, that's something to consider. Like, I'm not living under a freaking bridge, shooting black tar heroin into my neck. You know what I mean?
You know what I noticed too, though? I noticed that going through the trauma, and anyone that has recovered from trauma or healed from trauma or healing in a sense, they all say they would do it all over again if they had to. If they had to pick a perfect world where you've never gone through anything versus the life that you had, which would you choose? And they all choose this chaotic, crazy way. And the reason why is because here's this. You're crying for help. You're praying to God. You're asking for, please, I just need some sort of just
show me
release.
A sign.
Show me something. Help me. But that is the help is burning you down, because here's the thing. If I give you, let's say you're a drug addict and I take away your house, right? But you still have a car, so you still have another way for you to go get those drugs. Well, now I take this car away from you, so now you're homeless. Well, now you could, you can
still walk there.
Go off of a friend, right? And you're still doing it. The things are being taken away, not to destroy you, to discover you, to discover the love and the shit you're praying for. But you're not realizing it because you're bowing again to the devil that you know and not surrendering to the God you're praying to. And that's the whole point of it, is that did it suck going through the abuse and the craziness and the chaos and literally facing death, fighting for my own life? Yes, it was crazy. It was chaotic. But I would never value people. I would never value my worth. I would never entertain.
I'd always be late.
I'm telling you, I would literally, the meaning of love, like for me, loyalty was huge for me, because I only knew, like I said, I only knew love as a sacrifice. So then when people stepped up to the plate and actually showed me that loving care, I sacrificed my shit for them. So I knew that loyalty was something for me. But not everyone's loyal, and not everyone will sacrifice shit for you. And so when you're sitting here giving that loving heart that you crave for forever, like I still to this day would die for a loving man, an unconditional loving man that didn't have conditions for me. And do I crave that? Yes, I do. But I now know my worth and value, that I'm not going to go beg for that. I'm going to wait until that person shows me that. I'm not going to go look for it. I'm going to wait for it to come to me. And that's just it. You go through those traumatic situations to discover you. And it isn't until that clicks in your head, all these things that keep happening to you, it's to fucking save you.
Right. I mean, like, you're right. I mean,
yes.
I don't know if anybody can identify with this, but I usually learn what the right thing is after doing it wrong. We remember the things that were traumatic, emotionally, physically. That's why men who have been sexually assaulted at a young age by whoever, pedophiles or whatnot, like we think that that's our fault. We think that we did something wrong, and it's the farthest from the truth. You're a victim. You were taken advantage of. You were put in a position that no one thought you would be in, and it's not your fault, right? But that's not what they say to themselves, and it's such a horrible dynamic to think that people live decades just stuffing that stuff down because they're just too afraid to hear that they're going to be okay.
Right. Well, and most of them use sexual encounters to have validation for themselves.
Right.
So most of them have multiple partners, or, and they give their body because that's what they knew of, like you said, sacrifice.
That's how they felt validated or whatever.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And it's not like that. It's someone, love is from within. A person doesn't love you for your how you are, you know,
Right.
for the intimate part. Sure, of course you need that chemistry and connection, but I'm just saying
Right.
that they're not saying that's why they love you is based off of that. You know what I
Right.
mean?
I know exactly what you're saying. And, you know, that's why marriage is hard. You know what I mean? Like you're with the same person for a really long time. You know, women have kids and they're like, I don't want to have sex every night. I'm fucking tired, you know, and like guys got to understand that. And some of them don't. And, you know, like there are dynamics that make it harder for us to, you know, collaborate together, especially if our entire foundation of our relationship was built on, I think she's really hot, or like, you know, she does things to me that are really kinky that no one else has done for me before. That's a true sign of love, right? Like that shit gets tired after a while, and you know, after you get it done 100 times, like you're asking yourself, what do I got?
Well, again, but Renick, that is desire because you're looking external.
Right.
And that's even women and men that cheat. They're not going to something better. They're going to entertain their desire.
Correct.
Because they lost that desire with you because you're tired now, or you know what I mean, or you're not home, you're working all the time, whatever it is.
Right.
But it will always fall flat because you're just filling a void. That's what you're
selfish,
doing.
Right?
It's right.
You're saying to yourself, I want what I want, and it'll have to be at your expense, right?
Right.
Because I want that, and I will do whatever I can to convince yourself that it's not at your expense, right?
Yeah.
But it 100% is. Community, it's connection, it's all those things that we strive to have, but don't know how to get there. And we get lost in the madness. And I know I can say for myself that, you know, if it wasn't screwed down, I stole it. If I didn't get what I want, I hurt you to get it. And I didn't care what the consequences were. And it left me in a place where I was isolated, alone by myself. I couldn't ask for help. And I finally had to do something for me. And, you know, thankfully it's worked out the way that it's supposed to work out. But I know that that's not my primary purpose, is to be selfish and self-centered. It's really kind of the opposite. And to your point, it's simple, right? Like it's the instructions are simple. It's what complicates it is everyone else, right? Like it's just really simple to just be kind. Like I remember going into a church basement for an AA meeting, and the pastor that we were renting the room from, you know, he had his collar on and everything, and he was in the kitchen where I was emptying out the coffee because that was my job to make coffee that night. And I was like, "What's up, Father?" And he was like, nothing's going on. I was like, "What's a good word today?" And he was like, "Help thy neighbor." And I was like, "Whoa, he's right. Just be kind. Like help your neighbor, right? Like if they need help chopping wood, go help them chop wood. Maybe they'll do the same for you. Not because you hope that they will, but because you just know that it's the right thing to do. It's unconditional. And I have no expectations on what you'll do for me in exchange for my willingness to be kind and caring and loving, but also not be a doormat." And I think that's what it boils down to. Like I didn't know how not to be a doormat. And it's okay. Right. It's okay to say, I'm not going to do that. And it's not okay to be around somebody that you constantly tell you can't cross this line, that doesn't care and crosses it all the time. Right? Like that's not a partner. That's something different. And that's something that I had to learn after a long period of time that I didn't want. Like if this person wasn't willing to understand that they couldn't cross that line because it's not a line I wanted them to cross, and they did it every day anyway, like what do I got here? You know,
and that just comes down to boundaries. Like boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. Boundaries are bridges to only allow the right ones in.
Right.
And if you don't allow your boundaries to stick to you, then what are you placing them for? If it's an open house to everybody that you're placing,
a doormat, right?
And exactly, it's a doormat, and people will treat you the way that you allow them to.
Correct.
So if you keep giving a pass for the way that they're treating you, they will keep doing it, and they will push further and further and further. And the next thing you know, you're someone that you're not even
right.
You know,
you're someone that's looking forward to rub their muddy shoes on your back when they come back inside. And you're saying to myself, you're saying, "Thanks for doing that. That was great."
And one way, like relationships, marriages, whatever you want to call it, they do not work without reciprocity.
Mhm.
You have to have reciprocity in order for things to work, because it's not a 2-lane street. Or when people say it's 50-50, no, it's not. It's 100-100.
Mhm.
You both give your damn all. And sure, are there things that you may need to bend your ways with, and things that aren't so bad, like, turning the TV off by 9 o'clock so I can sleep? Sure. Will there be little things like that you have to
Right.
maybe bend your own rules for? Sure. But there's difference between boundaries and accepting things for someone's, to respect
Peace of mind.
someone's,
Right.
exactly, to respect someone and have the reciprocity, and there's things that you just won't do and that are a no-go. They're just absolutely not. I will not do that. And that's your boundary,
Right.
and that's where it's up
And
to.
I'm allowed to be around people that respect that.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Like I know enough about myself to know that if you don't respect that, I don't want to be around you.
Yes.
But
before, you probably would bend your ways.
Before I would have been like, go for it. Do what you need to do. Because that's what I think that you want. And God forbid if you don't think that I'm giving you what you want, like what's my worth then? Right. Like my worth was always evaluated based on what other people thought. It was never self-evaluated. Like I never told myself that, I was worthy enough to be respected and to have boundaries, and that it was not okay if people crossed them. I just let them do it. You know what I mean? And so you learn after a while that that's not what you want anymore.
So if there's someone listening right now and they feel like, oh man, this is where I am right now, like, I'm that guy, I need help. Like, what would you recommend to them to do? Like, to seek help? Would you recommend them going to, someone in their circle, or more of a AA type of thing, an outside therapist? I feel like sometimes too, the word therapy or a therapist to someone, right there, they just say weakness. Like they just feel that it's such a weak thing, and it's not a weakness at all. I highly suggest, I think even just normal everyday people should go see therapists, because it's someone outside of your circle. You don't want to really talk or confide in so many people inside of your circle, because they're part of your life and not necessarily an issue, but they're part of who you are.
Right.
So
I think to answer your question, I believe that each one of us has, at least one person that they can be completely, naked in front of, not physically, but like, I can't do this anymore. Right. Like that could be a priest. It could be a rabbi. It could be your best friend. It could be your parent. It could be your sister. It could be whoever it is that, if you're in that spot where you're identifying with a lot of what you and I are talking about, then you got to ask yourself, have you had, and they've said to themselves, I've been in enough pain. Like I no longer need to do this anymore. I would connect with one of the people that, isn't going to judge you for whatever, you're willing to tell them, and ask them, what should I do? Right? Like, should I go see a therapist? Should I go to rehab? Should I go to talk to a priest? Should I, what should I do? Because I needed someone to tell me what I needed to do. I needed someone to say, you need help. And I needed to finally agree that I did need help. And then when you're ready to make that decision, or I heard my father say that he was open to, having help, like I see that I can, and that it's not a detriment that you ask for help. And you're not a bad person. You're actually probably really normal if you can identify with some or even a little bit of what we're talking about. And if you want help, I think deep down inside, everyone has an idea of where they can go. And if they don't, then they could, email you, they could email me, they could, leave a comment on a video, whatever it happens to be. Like there are plenty of people out there that are willing to help. That's what's crazy. There's plenty of people out there that are willing to help. You just got to find the right one. And you got to believe that you're not terminally unique, right? Like, and that it's actually a part of our DNA, in my opinion, that learning how to ask for help is more manly than not. right?
Well, I tell everyone too that it doesn't matter how big your muscles are. You could work out every single day, 10 times a day, and be the next whatever, Mucho
Arnold Schwarzenegger, right?
Right, there you go, Arnold Schwarzenegger. But if you are not mentally healthy, you are weak.
Right,
Because you can bench press, whatever, do whatever. But if your mental state is not in a healthy state of mind, you are weak because you will crumble under certain circumstances. And you can let out your anger and you can let those muscles flex and break and do whatever, but it's not going to change the mental aspect of the situation that you're in. So, the number one thing for anyone to do and to be of healthy healthy
yeah,
actions is
spirit,
your mind, because your mind controls everything. Your mind also controls how your heart moves, how your muscles go, your sends the sensories for how
right,
you eat. I mean, just little everything. It literally is, I tell everybody, the steering wheel to your life. What you put in your mind is exactly your destination of where you're going in your life. If you
right,
constantly give yourself negativity and you put yourself down and you don't think highly of yourself, that's what you're going to be. You're going to be a nobody, a nothing, or whatever word you want to say. But if you can put your mind to whatever it is that you're trying to do, you will excel. Like, look at all of these famous people, millionaires, billionaires. Some of them don't even have degrees because
right.
it's in the mind. You really don't need a damn degree. I mean, I can sit next to a brain surgeon right now for weeks and weeks and weeks and learn his different processes and things that he does, and I would probably be able to do that same procedure. Sure,
Right,
I have to learn it, I have to see it. I can't just walk in and start doing brain surgery, but I
right,
don't need a fucking certificate to sit here and do it if I'm sitting here going through the practices and the motions of doing it.
right,
And that's why individuals like ourselves who have been through this trauma and been through the situations, we know all the motions, the steps, the actions, whatever it is. We are like the best people to be advocates for, and mentors for individuals, because we've been through it
right. We've experienced it.
hardcore,
Yeah.
straight through it. And it's like, this is the type of stuff that you have to surround yourself with, and these types of people. If you really want help, you got to put yourself in that mental aspect to do.
Listen, I knew innately when I was ready to say I've had enough. Like
Mhm.
I knew I was ready, and I needed someone to point me in the right direction. Like I needed someone to say, you just need to go there. Like I couldn't figure out anything. Like I couldn't say to myself, I just need to be better today. Like I couldn't do that. I was so broken, you know what I mean? Like I'm in a ditch that no matter whatever positive thing you tried to spin my way, I just wouldn't believe it. Like I was that broken. It's as if somebody, says to you, like, go here or ask for help here, like you'll get it. I mean, I was telling you the other day, like I went to the hospital because I was having suicidal thoughts. I didn't know if I was going to do something or not. So I drove
Mhm.
myself to the hospital. I stopped myself from crying. I walked into the emergency room. I was seeing other people in the emergency room, and I sat down to the lady who asked me how I could help her. And I said this, I said, I don't know if I am going to hurt myself. Can you help me? And she looked me dead in the face and said, I'm really glad that you're here. And then I just exploded, right? Like
Yeah.
that's enough to get help, right? Like you can do that. Like, and that's what I
Yeah.
did. And I got the help that I needed when I went to the emergency room. Like it doesn't have to be, this big, like, E equals MC squared thing, or like the light burning bush has to come. It's just as much as asking for help when you're struggling. And,
Mhm.
like the emergency room's a good place to do that.
Right.
That's why they're there. It's an
That's what
emergency. You know what I
it
mean? So like, I think that you'll find a way when you're ready. I believe that. And
Yes.
if you don't, then, you know, then maybe you're just not ready. I don't know. Like everybody's different, and whatnot. But I know I can say beyond a shadow of doubt that I know what it's like to feel any type of pain that makes you isolated and alone and vulnerable and busted up, and that, you know, it it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, but it's this
Well, the
necessary
thing too
suffering.
is, grief is love, just in another form. And why people feel they want to feel loved is because they're grieving something that they lost, or what they want. So they're grieving the love, the nurturing that they maybe see other people, or they're grieving a physical loss, a person, or they're grieving a relationship, whatever it is. But that grief is eating away at them, where they need to feel the love.
Right.
The same form of the grief that they're entertaining, they need to feel it in a loved form, in a compassion form. And that's just it. You get to the point where you realize that you're grieving, and you got to love yourself. You have to fill, if you're emptying the cup, you got to fill it too. Otherwise you're going to be completely empty. And that's just basically it. Let's talk about your website. So can you tell the listeners what your website is and what it's about?
It's pretty simple. So the website is obviously www.thein-betweenman.com, and it'll have a breakdown of the Goddard methodology on there. It'll have some photos of who I am and what I'm not. Like, I don't claim to be. I have a psychology degree, but I'm not a certified psychiatrist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physician. I'm just a normal guy that has experienced life in a lot of different ways and happened to do it sober for a long period of time. And so that's my experience. And then we talk about the Goddard methodology. You can schedule a free 1-hour conversation with me if you wanted to learn more or hear more or talk about whatever dynamics you can identify with, either on the website or during this podcast. And we'll see what happens. There's going to be no charge for it, but if you wanted to learn more about the Goddard methodology and how it may assist you in helping you uncover or create a foundation for you to understand what you may or may not be accountable for, that's where you can go, and you can learn about that and what that process looks like. What's the short-term goals, what the long-term goals are, and how all the dynamics work. So it's really a place for you to go and learn more about me, get yourself acclimated to the Goddard methodology, what processes you can go through in order to engage with me and have a conversation, and how we could, potentially develop a ongoing, partnership coaching dynamic if that's something that you wanted.
Awesome. And I'll put all that, like, for those who are seeking this podcast on video, I'll be able to put it on there. I just have you also do it in case anyone hears it audio.
I love it. Good idea.
That way. And then we'll close up with, if you could go back and talk to your younger self before alcohol took hold and the things that you had gone through, what would you say to that individual?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And, I wish I had something unique to say, right? Like, I wish I had something profound to say, but the reality is that I don't think I would be the person that I am today if I didn't go through all that stuff. As a matter of fact, I know I wouldn't be, right? I'd either be miserable, in jail, or dead. I don't think that I could learn what I've learned any other way than the way that I've learned it. And so I would probably just tell my younger self, keep going. You know what I mean? Like, just keep going. You know what I mean? And I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that during my drinking career, there were not countless times, but I would say 3 different circumstances that played out that confirmed for me that I knew a higher power was watching over me. Like, I can't explain certain things that happened to me that got me home safe. I can't, believe certain things that happened to me that got me to school safe, whatever it happened to be. So I would probably not say, I wouldn't change anything. I would just say, forge ahead, do what you need to do. And the rest will keep coming. And I can't imagine not doing that based on what I know about myself today. So that's probably where I'd go.
I have one question, and I wasn't going to ask this, so this is out on a whim here. So in AA, and I'll tell you why I'm asking. In AA, they have you like write letters to people that you've hurt, asking for forgiveness. How was that for you? How?
So yeah, that's a very scary process, right? And so um I I told you I stole a lot of things.
Mhm.
I manipulated not a lot, but a couple women in college, and so I wrote letters to them apologizing for my actions and my part. I went to my employer and I sat down and I said, "Hey, when I was working for you, I stole 5 Cliff Bars and 7 pairs of socks and 2 shirts and a set of skis and all this stuff. If you could tell me how much all this is, I'd like to start paying you back if you're okay with that. And if you're not okay with that, I can also appreciate that too. Like if you want me to be arrested, I'm prepared to take on that consequence. But like all of the things that I did, some weren't positive, but most of them were. Um, it was okay, but it was scary, man. It was really, really scary. And um, yeah, it's that going through that type of process was the emptying of the backpack analogy that I gave you. That's what it did for me. And when I did that, and I was prepared to accept any consequence of my action for any harms that I had done, I was levitating off the ground. And I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that the higher power that I thought existed and took care of me early on was absolutely a thing at that moment. Like that was like, I would call that sort of like confirmation that I was loved unconditionally by a higher power and by God himself. And so, yeah, it's not fun. It's not what you want to do. I wouldn't recommend, going out and doing it, but I had someone who told me what I needed to do and how to do it. And I bit through the bullet and did it. And again, I came out just a better human being and the person I know God wants me to be.
And I asked that because, I had a childhood abuser, and It wasn't actually until here 30 something years later, I started this podcast, and I was on an individual's podcast, and he was sent the podcast that I had done with one of our,
with the guy, right?
And he ended up writing me a letter, and he had gone through AA, and he had apologized here 30 something years later. Yes. And
no way.
Mm-hmm.
How was that experience for you when you heard it?
Well, see, for me, going through my trauma, I had to go through forgiveness, because you can't move on from situations until you forgive.
Right.
So for me, I had already forgiven him, even though there was nothing, that I never.
There was no formal forgiveness ceremony, right?
Exactly. So when he had sent it to me after seeing that podcast, it was crazy, because I felt like, the first day I got it, I broke down in tears. And it's mainly because I felt like I had been yearning for this, but I never asked for that forgiveness. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until, and here it had affected my entire life. And it wasn't until my recent adult abuse and stuff that I went through therapy. So it was literally after all the chaos, and that's when he sent it. So my criminal court case was just ended this last December of 2024. And he had just sent this I'd say February or March of this year, maybe even April of this year. So just recently that he saw the podcast and ended up sending me an apology letter. And I took a day to think about it, but then I ended up writing him back, and I basically said, I could read my response. It's pretty quick, but I basically just said,
what did he say? Did he admit to you what he did wrong?
Yes, he said that he was very sorry, that he was fighting his own monsters, And he was trying to control himself, and really he was controlling everyone around him. And he had stated that he remembers but doesn't remember some of the things, in such detail.
Right.
And he had said that he hoped that for the sake of myself, that I could forgive him. And so even in my letter back, I said to him that, I had already forgiven you because I needed to heal myself.
I needed to do it for myself. Yeah.
But now I said, thank you for giving me the words that now I can match to the absence of words that I had made for myself for the forgiveness. But I pretty much said that, you were a monster, and, it wasn't easy fighting the demons. I said, and I can relate with you fighting the demons because I didn't fight them with you. I also fought them in you. So, I saw the monster because you were that monster to me,
Right.
And I said I also needed to basically heal because I never wanted to be that monster to my own children.
Right.
And if I didn't do that, that was exactly what I would have been,
Right.
And I pretty much I can read this to you, but, read it to people. But I just said, I hope this message finds you well. And I said, I hope that it gives you peace in the presence of your enemies you now face in a sober state of mind and health. Your words of apology are appreciated and accepted. However, I must say I forgave you years ago as I needed to in order to heal myself. But thank you, as I now have words to attach to the silence of forgiveness I made peace with. The pain and suffering you caused me needed to be faced, as it caused many years of destruction in my life. And it wasn't until I was able to face it, feel it, and heal it, I kept bowing to the devil I knew of darkness, chaos, and craziness instead of the light, the love, and the laughter. As I was raised knowing what love is not, and not what love is. Also, becoming a mother and a parent myself, I wanted to assure that I would never projected the pain and suffering onto my children, as no naive child should ever face the horrible things you did to us. Many times I would ask God to please never make me the monster that you were, to give me nothing but love, affection, and attention that a child needs, that my children should never have to beg to be loved, or for the bare minimal things parents should do, which is assure their children's health and safety. I needed to assure that my children never grew up thinking that they were not good enough, or the problem, or that they had to fear love because all they knew was malice. I asked God for love, not only for myself, but my children, and also to help others who are fighting the deep internal wounds that cause destruction in their lives and all those around them, rather than becoming the monster I once feared. God does just that. He works through others. This is why I have chosen to share my story publicly, not for pity, not for attention or malice or anyone. It's for love, light, and for healing. We all face demons in our lives, and I believe it because our souls are the end prize. Our soul is what gives us life, both internally in our human bodies and eternally as our spirits pass. We all have the gift that we were given, which is the gift of free will, to choose if we want to allow the darkness, the destruction, and the addictive spirit by continuing to bow to the devil we know so well from generational trauma, by coping with masking with substances, or if we want to choose to heal and embrace love, light, and peace by praising the God we never truly knew. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I'm sure you haven't heard those words much because you've numbed and projected your pain for so long, making it the weight of others instead of your own. However, I hope they resonate with you a little more coming from me, one who has faced the devil in you and with you. And now, proud that you chose the light of the Lord just as I have, despite the darkness we knew and entertained mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. As you stated in your message, you're reaping the repercussions of your behaviors, as I too have from my own trauma. The biggest lessons we usually have are the hardest losses. And possibly this is why I could relate to your message in many ways. Again, thank you for your words and best wishes on your healing and sobriety journey. Peace be with you and God bless. So that is what I wrote back to him for.
Wow.
And that's why I ask you, because hearing it from someone, you're on the other side, even though you're not my abuser,
No. But what you got to experience So it's definitely different. Like to your point, like you had to you either were going to stay angry or you had to forgive, right? And so you learned over time how to forgive, and you did, right? And then you grew again more personally. And you're saying that this guy sent this. When was the last time you talked to him before he sent you that letter?
30 plus years ago.
Get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is, dude, that is
But for people listening,
no, but that is so
that
is exactly what we're talking about here. You know what I mean? And what's even more interesting is that you presented a whole different side of, you know, what I've described. Like, some people aren't willing to forgive, right? Some people aren't willing to say, I forgive you. I hope you die in a ditch, right? Like, and that scenario can happen. Good for you that you were able to say what you said. Cause I mean, I obviously, it was so heartfelt and so real, but like, I can tell you that he probably broke down, because I'm sure if he was willing to do that, he knew. How could you not know the level of damage that you put on someone like that? Like, that's a big one. And holy shit, Kerie, that's good for you.
But I share that because you're not forgiving someone for what they did to you. You're forgiving them. So just like your analogy of taking the backpack off, I can't carry the backpack of the pain and the suffering and the drinking and the chaos that I knew as emotion. I knew that as love. That was the love that I knew, because that was the attention, you know, and love is attention. You're giving that undivided attention to the people that you love. So chaos and confusion and whatever words you want to use, that's when you raise people in, you know, you raise children in that environment, that's what they know as love. So that's why my whole life was the way that it was because I wanted to be that savior and that lover to people in situations like yourself. So that's why I wanted to ask you too, how it was for you emotionally coming from, because clearly I couldn't ask my abuser that, and, you know, and he had alcoholism and stuff like that too. But I asked you because I mean, I knew it, obviously it takes courage to do that. I know that part of it, but to hear it from the opposite side and the purpose of your end of why you do it, not just because, oh, this AA meeting tells me to, like, you know, what was the purpose and what's your point behind it? And that's exactly why I had asked.
Well, the purpose and the point behind it is that you admit what you did was wrong, right? Like, if you wanted to, right, you could have, you know, you could have done a lot of other things other than forgiveness that are, you know, involve lawyers and things like that if you wanted to, right? Like, you have to be prepared for that to happen, right? And so you're opening yourself up to an unknown, but because you're going to do whatever you can for yourself not to drink again. Like, it's that kind of thing where it's literally the example that I used about it's removing, like, that type of rock in someone's backpack is probably 50 pounds. You know, so for him, you know, not knowing the guy and getting this unconditional love and forgiveness that he got from you, after you clearly have stated that what he did to you had such a profound impact over 30 years of your life or not longer, like, that's a big freaking deal, right? Like, it's confirmation. It's more confirmation for me that there's a loving God, Jesus, whoever out there that is watching over us, because that stuff just doesn't happen on its own. Like, you have to be willing. You have to believe that you'll be taken care of. You have to accept that there may be circumstances that you're not prepared for. And if there are, you have to go to jail for it. Like it's a big deal. And he and you are perfect examples of how that interaction can play out that benefits both of you. Like, I don't think that he expected, like the expectation is not to get what you sent him, right? The expectation is I have to admit my wrong and do that and say that I am in this program because I am willingly choosing not to do this again and making an amends for it. Right. So you're acknowledging that what you did was wrong and you'll never want to do that again, because that could be something that if he does again, he could drink all over. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's a level of freedom that I don't know if I could describe. It's just like, it's just this, it's, you know what it is? It's pure, unconditional grace, right? Like that's exactly what it is. And when it can be shared in the way that you shared it and done in the way that he did it, knowing that what he did wrong, it's profound, right? Like I'm sure it was profound for you. I'm sure it was profound for him, but it's two separate examples of how people can punch through the other side, right?
Yes. Well, even with all this, like Charlie Kirk stuff and how like she on the, on TV was like, I forgive him, because it's not, you realize that people's actions are not your consequences. They are their consequences.
Right.
And so you can hold on to the resentment and the pain and the suffering that someone had caused you. But reality is, again, like I had said earlier, you're drinking the poison, but hoping they're getting sick where they're already on with their life. And here's the thing, if you were so wonderful to them from the get-go, they never would have hurt you to begin with.
Right.
So clearly he never knew, and yes, because there was addiction issues and so forth, but never knew the value of children per se and the gift that they are, because he was so sick in his illness. And so who am I to call out the wrongdoings of someone who's sick? God says to heal those and, to love your neighbor, but also to not aid into the illness of others. Like you should help the sick, And so at that time, I mean, I pray that he isn't sick anymore and that it's working and so forth. I don't know. I didn't have, that was literally
that was it.
It was a social media message back to me and back to him. And that was it. There was no back and forth or nothing like that.
And most people, I shouldn't say most people, some people choose not to go down the path that you're talking about and want to say, I'm going to return the favor of how much harm you put on me by laying it out on you. And, that's a choice that we have to accept if you're willing to make that type of amends. And, clearly that didn't happen, but I mean, it would be totally justified if you did. If you live in that world, you don't. But my point is that we live in a world that doesn't think the way that you're thinking and what is in,
because they think logical. So the logical thing is this person did me wrong. And the logical thing is I should react in this sort of way. But that's the thing, is people don't understand. You cannot control anyone's actions, but you can control your reactions.
Yes.
And so as much as I was beaten so bad by this man, and he was literally a monster that I feared, he was the devil as someone who I had to call a father, my father, our father.
Right. No, it's inconceivable.
That is unconditional love, and that was not a father that I saw, and that's just it. The devil doesn't come looking like a pitchfork in a red cape.
Right, in a
the
sickle.
devil comes in a loving manner,
Right.
in a fake manner, and he came for me at that childhood as a father figure that I should love and consume unconditionally. Right. But he wasn't. Right. But here's the thing: do I sit here and do I absorb this devil that wasn't the father that he ever should have been, or do I say my loving father above gave me the greatest gift in return, which is 3, not 1, but 3, because God does in tenfold, right? Gave me 3 loving, beautiful children that I needed to show the love that I never got for. Sure. And so I needed to have that forgiveness. I needed to lift that burden, because I can't let that illness that he had consume me anymore.
You can't transfer that pain, right? Like you can't transfer that. Yeah.
Exactly. And who are my kids are just the same kid that I was, this little naive, innocent human being. And who am I to do such wrongdoings to them?
Right.
You can't. You have to. There's got to be a point where you say you can't lay down and be the victim anymore.
But there's people that do.
Yes.
Kerie. I mean, exactly, there's people. The reality is that most people won't take exactly what you're talking about.
Because when people hear forgiveness, they think I have to bypass or give them a free pass to what they did to me. No way. No. What they did is what they did. But here's the thing: never, ever let anyone's ignorance be a reflection of your character.
Exactly.
And until you realize that,
you're going to be in a spot.
You're going to be yes. And so stop laying down on the tracks and wondering why the train is running you over, because you're not standing up on the side and saying, I'm not going to let you do that anymore.
I had a friend of mine once tell me, like, get off the cross. We need the wood.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, exactly. Like, you know what? No one, don't stop taking yourself so seriously. Like you just.
Well, and that's why people go to substance abuse, because they can't face that forgiveness. So rather they would just mask it and just, and keep doing it. And let me tell you, I mean, I was that person. Look, I entertained all of that. And it took until 2 years ago and 30 years later for my childhood abuser to say that they're sorry. And it was almost, like I said, it was so ironic. Like, it's so, God works in such mysterious ways. When they say it's God's plan, it's God's freaking plan. Because I'll tell you what, had he done that 20 years ago,
you wouldn't have been able to hear it. Right.
My words would probably not have been nice.
I agree.
They would have been like, take a hike, buddy. Right. You know, like, you see that foot, stick it as far up your that you can. You know what I mean? Like, but now, and I mean, and I had kids then too, you know, but I was still in that loop of not knowing my worth, my value, and who I was as a person. So it's crazy that God now, at the other side of my, I was about 1.5 years in at that point of therapy. So it's like, even I sent that to my sister and, showed her, and she was like, seeing this shows me how much you have healed. Like, this is like an eye opener for me, and because she's a victim too. And she's like, wow, seeing this even is like, you really had healed a lot.
Power of example, right? Like, you took what you need, you probably did what she might not be ready to do right now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's what, that's what we're really talking about here, is just trying to do the next
you
right
gotta
thing.
Take accountability, but that's just it. There's even though I didn't ask him to come beat me, I'm a little naive child and so forth, I needed to take accountability. And what the accountability was allowing it to play the mental aspect it did in my mind to let me know and level my own worth, value, the way I handle, just situations and so forth. Yes, I didn't ask for that, but where my accountability is my reaction to it and how I decided 100%. To let that play in my mind of who I was, and that's what people need to realize. Like I said, it's all in the mental. Once you face that part of the mental health in your mind and you realize, wait a minute, what they did wasn't right, but it's not right that I'm entertaining it anymore and giving it a free rental space in my mind and in my
but like
thoughts.
you didn't learn that overnight though. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, absolutely not.
it took you a long time for you to come to that, decision. And that also speaks about what we're talking about too. Like having this personal understanding, requires time. And it happens when it's supposed to happen. And to your point, it happened at a time when you were working on dynamics that allowed you to have this grace and ability to not scorn when you had every opportunity to. You know what I mean? Like you just didn't do it. I mean, it's confirmation that for me that it's working. Something's working. You know what I mean? Like, and the great part about what you're talking about, and I think what we're talking about is that like, it's not just for me. It's not just for you.
Right.
It's for whoever wants it. Right. And this can happen. Right. And all you have to be is either in enough pain or willing to try something different and see what happens, because what's been working so far might not be working. And so that's,
well, and the thing
I'm glad you shared that with me. That's awesome.
Well, I shared it with you too, because I wanted you to exactly like have hope that people will come around. Like it's not going to be on your timing, but you know what? When you were abusing me and using alcohol and that wasn't on my timing either. You know what I mean?
Right.
And vice versa for your endures. You know what I mean? And so it's like, and what I learned too is no matter what karma I want to give someone, real karma and God will do way more than I ever possibly could.
Right.
So in my mind, it's like, I'm being silent, I'm suffering, but who am I doing that for? Not myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What comes around really freaking goes around. And not that I don't wish bad things. I really wish, I honestly still, I wanted help from him from the get-go. And I still to this day hope that he gets help. I hope that he finally sees that, sometimes it takes us to be withdrawn from everything, just how we learned, in the darkest of dark to finally get help. And maybe there is no help for him. I don't know. It's
not your job anymore.
It's not my job.
You've done what you needed to do, which is more than what most people would ask. Right. And it's, I get inspired by stories like that because, that's a real story. That's a real thing that happened. And it's just, I'm overwhelmed by how awesome it is.
But it starts with you. You have to heal those deep rooted things to realize, wow, it's me who is choosing my destiny and me who's choosing the life that I'm living. And if I'm entertaining someone that's on a level down here that isn't healed or has whatever, that's what I'm going to keep entertaining until I realize, wait, hold on, I'm up here, and people that are up here have done the same work. They don't go down here. You know what I mean? It's like, then you start finding people that are on your level, and it all comes from, like I said, it truly is unconditional love. And what we talked about from the get-go is it's not a convenience. Love is a commitment. It's a connection. And
a partnership.
It's a partnership. It's not a convenience.
No. It's not a transaction.
It's not. It is not a transaction. And that is exactly what you will get if you treat it that way.
Correct.
So it's like, you got to learn to come to realization, and it starts with you. So
we learn when we're ready.
It's true. It is so true. Well, thank you so much, Renick. I appreciate your time and your insight. And even, it was great to see even the opposite sides of you and myself, like one that, you were on the other foot of what I had experienced.
It was great. I'm really glad you shared that. That was awesome. There's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? We have a lot of the same types of dynamics unfolding, right? Like just at different times and in different situations. And I'm grateful that you gave me an opportunity to connect with you. Obviously, it's been my pleasure, and you're an angel, and I love it all. So I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Renick. I appreciate you too.
Thank you for joining us in this powerful conversation. Today we were reminded that alcoholism doesn't just affect the person bringing it and battling it. It ripples through families, relationships, and generations. But we also saw that healing is possible and forgiveness can be a bridge to freedom. If you're struggling with addiction or love someone who is, know that you are not alone and that hope and change are always within reach. Until next time, keep choosing grace, keep choosing healing, and remember, your story can become someone else's testimony. Much love, and thanks so much for joining Bottoms Up.